like to call this meeting to order of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. And tonight's agenda includes presentations on the purchase of a new fire truck from the fire department, new fire ladder truck from the fire department, and at 5:45, the borough school renovation expansion project. So fire department's up first. Deputy Mike Kelleher.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Right.
We were fortunate to be awarded a grant for a new ladder truck to replace our 1994 ladder truck through the federal government. So we were a competitive grant, and we were very fortunate to be awarded this grant. So obviously the fire department is very excited and very enthusiastic about this.
So for those that may not be aware, can you just tell us how much the grant was for?
Sure. It was the grant was for $809,524.
That was pretty specific.
Wow, that's
Any
impressive.
pennies on that, or?
No, sir, nope.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got about $810,000. The price of a ladder truck is, between $975,000 and $1 million today. I think we're very fortunate because I think we're going to see a big increase in the price of steel and other goods to build, typically what goes into a ladder truck. So I think what we're going to get a good deal because I think that the price is going to go way up in the next 18 months with all the tariffs and things going on. So I'm here tonight because we need to supplement that with a little funding through the ambulance receipts. Mm-hmm. We're looking for $250,000. So that'll offset the cost of the truck, and then there'll be a little bit left over for some equipment. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really it.
So what are you going to do with the 94?
It has to either be shipped out of the country or destroyed, unfortunately.
And that was based on their grant?
That's based on the grant, yes, yeah. That's part of the requirements through the federal government.
Shipped out of the country?
Yeah, we can donate it to South America or overseas.
Okay. All right.
Is there any offsets for doing that?
We're going to try, we're working with a few companies now to see what we can do. It's not obviously it's not a big market in South America for fire trucks, but we're going to try to get as much as we can out of it, but it's really not looking.
Because that ladder's not in bad shape. It's just it's old, I know that.
It's old.
It was refurbished.
Refurbished, yeah.
Yeah, we put
About 10 years
$200,000
ago?
into it, back in 2011, 2012.
Okay.
We were expecting to extend the life about 7 to 10 years, and we're at year 7 now, so we would be looking at spending upwards of $1 million in a couple of years to replace it. So,
So is my understanding is that you've been saving, putting some money aside for that, correct? For
yeah, we have a whole capital replacement plan that's pretty much funded through the ambulance receipts of the department that they generate through the ambulance service, and working with finance, we have a plan that we stick to, and this was just kind of a surprise. We put in for the grant and we were successful.
I was curious, how often do grants like that come around, and what's the have you ever had one that's that significant in the past?
Well, actually, last year we were fortunate. We got about the same amount of money to hire 4 firefighters. So we've been kind of lucky.
Through that grant?
Yeah.
And that's over a span of 3 years, correct, Mike?
Yeah, the
firefighters?
it was called the SAFER grant. We were able to, that's a what's called period of performance. It's a 3-year period of performance where we get incremental money every year to maintain staffing at the fire department. This is just a lump sum. This is $810,000.
You had a radio grant as well in there.
We did, the year before. We were fortunate. I think this is a couple of years ago. I came before the Capital Outlay Committee to change the way we do our data and change the software. And I think we're kind of seeing the return on that investment now, because when we submit this stuff to the federal government, it's all very streamlined and it's very consistent. And I think that's really where we're getting the benefit.
So how much is that, have you as the department, taken in over the past 3 years? 1.6, 1.7?
You're approaching $2 million right now.
$2 million. That's fabulous.
So to answer your question, they give between 200 and 300 vehicle grants a year out through the federal government nationally.
So what's going on with Public Works? Can you do the same thing?
That percentage, though, is, I mean, that's
Tremendous amount of
amazing.
competition.
Yeah, we were very, very fortunate. We had some, we had a good team working on it, and we were very fortunate.
So question, if you knew that it was going to go out of the country, would you consider looking at auction?
Auction out of the country?
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Can it be done that way?
I don't know. That's, I'm asking the question.
I'm not sure.
We do way better with auctions than we do with trade-ins.
Yeah, we've tried, I mean, we're trying now.
I could put Kazoo on it. I mean, he does all his work free.
Yeah, I mean, reached out to some places in Canada to try to see, because it's obviously it's close.
Yeah,
To see if we could, if there's any value there, and so far, we're kind of striking out.
I would guess, but
But Mexico.
Mexico would be a good market.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mexico.
And now that they've opened up a little bit, maybe Cuba or something like that, you know? I mean, the whole idea would be just, I'll talk to the guy and see what he says. That's
Cuba
all.
would consider that to be brand new. 1994.
They refurb it to brand new condition.
Well, the fact that it was refurbished 7 years ago would have I think would have a very positive impact.
What's good about it is that the assembly on the back, that's pretty solid.
Yeah. One of the, I mean, the guys at the station really take pride in how they take care
Sure
of the
they do.
vehicles. So
Yeah.
they look, it looks like $1 million. I mean, all of our trucks do even.
So what's the life expectancy of a ladder truck, Mike? Nowadays?
Typically, in the suburbs, a town our size, probably 17 to 20 years.
You got your money's worth out of it.
Yeah. This 1994 replaced the 1976. So there was a lot less to that truck in the 1976 to the.
This is 25 years, right?
Yeah.
This truck.
Yeah, so this truck has lasted quite a while.
We couldn't have done the flagpole without it.
That's true. It's not the only thing that reached it, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. So what kind of truck are you looking to acquire?
Well, the truck that we have now is it's what we call a traditional ladder truck. It's basically a truck with a ladder on it. It doesn't carry any water or anything like that. So we're looking to make it more than a one-dimensional vehicle, something that's going to add a little more value to the town. We're looking to it's called a truck, what's called a quint concept. So the truck would have water on it as well.
Yep.
So we have the ability, if we end up at a fire with this truck, we have the ability to,
Can serve as an engine.
yeah, can serve as an engine as well. So I think it just makes us a little more versatile, a little more multidimensional in our response capabilities, which is.
I've always liked the
important.
Quints. I think they're a great truck because, especially in a community like this, we have multiple uses for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna spend $1 million in the scheme of things, it's a minimal investment to have that capability. I think for Foxboro, it's really worth it.
I think the other thing that's important to note is that Plainville just bought a huge scope truck. So, I mean, it's literally next door.
Yeah,
So
Walpole
for
did
us,
too.
and Walpole
as
did
well,
too. So there's not really a need for us to buy one. If in fact we had a major fire like that, it would be mutual aid anyways. So for us to really need to go out and buy something like that, I mean, we have the building to house it. Some people buy them, they don't have the place to put them afterwards, which is always interesting. But this is, we definitely have the place to put it, but this is really a need when you're surrounded by them.
When we look regionally, we want to diversify in our apparatus. If you look like a city of Boston has, different vehicles.
Right.
So that's kind of what we looked at as we were kind of deciding on what type of ladder truck we were going to purchase. And knowing that Walpole, Plainville, and Mansfield all have tower trucks that we really didn't feel that we needed one, and it's a fairly large investment to purchase one of those vehicles.
How does Mansfield, just out of curiosity, does Mansfield know you're looking at a Quint or?
Yes, yep.
All right, and how do they feel about? They think it would actually be helpful to diversify the fleet of the region.
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely, certainly does diversify it. Nobody in the surrounding communities has a truck that we're looking at, so it's
It's
certainly
really helpful to know
Yeah.
that. Oh.
So I think
So actually, that'll actually play out well when you go into regional dispatch.
Right.
When regional dispatch knows the different apparatus that
Yeah,
each
right.
community has, they can dispatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, really thinking with an eye towards the future, with the stuff we have going on with the land and hopefully someday having a substation on Route 140. That would be an ideal vehicle to be out there. We'd still have a ladder truck on the road in service, but, if God forbid it ended up at a house fire, today, if we end up at a house fire in that ladder truck, we have no capability of putting the fire out. In the future, we will. So that's kind of...
So Randy, can you frame a motion?
I can't vote.
No, you
but
can't make a motion, but you can frame one. Yeah.
Sure. I move that CIP committee approve the appropriation of $250,000 from ambulance receipts to supplement the FEMA grant to purchase a new fire ladder truck.
So moved. You didn't make the motion now.
Thank you.
So motion by Mr. Hill. Anybody have any questions? Anybody questions from the, do I have a second, first of all?
Second.
Second, okay. Any questions from the committee?
Are you going to have like a spec sheet on the proposed vehicle
Yes, yeah.
at some point?
Yep, absolutely. Would you like to see it?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Any
We have
further-
a committee of guys looking
Yeah,
at different
just,
vendors and
you
stuff.
know.
We've had different vendors and things.
Granted, it's $250,000, but in the aggregate, it's $1 million.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to know what the
Sure.
hell you're buying for $1 million.
I mean, I'll throw this out as a suggestion, too, that you might want to get some input from other towns in the Rage region as well.
Sure.
Because, stuff, again, if it's stuff that they don't have, we might be able to get with this truck.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it might help in the mutual aid capabilities.
And if you want, I'll put you in contact with Dave Cazot, so
Yeah, I'd
you can
love
at
to-
least talk to him about it.
Here his
you know.
idea, if he has any leads in Mexico or
Yeah,
something.
I mean, they sell all over the country, I know that.
Yeah.
Because some of our
Yeah.
stuff went down to New York and some went out to Indiana. So I sold that, what was it, 1963 Michigan loader for $9,000, and I wouldn't have figured I'd ever get a dollar like that for it. We made didn't we pull over 140,000
Yeah, it was about
in
close to
2 years?
I think it was close to
Yeah.
200,000.
Yeah,
Close to-
and we got another big one coming up, so, this year.
Wow.
All right,
It's
so
a
the
lot better
motion,
than trading them.
there's a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Do I have, what's, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good job, Mike.
Thank you.
Who seconded that? Was that you, Amy?
No, Roger.
Sue.
Oh, no, Sue
Sue,
did,
yeah.
sorry. Roger did first, Sue.
Okay, and then, okay, next up, Mr. Yukna.
How we doing?
Good to see you.
I see some crack sealing going on down there.
How's the knee?
It's getting there.
Yeah?
Take a little while, but
Yeah?
not
Not
too
playing any
bad.
golf this week, huh?
I've been playing golf for a long time. So this just kind of gives you a timeline of where we are, how we got where we are.
So this is the, so for the listening audience, this is the discussion of the Mableboro School Project for the renovation and improvement, expansion of the existing facility.
And this is a budget, yeah.
Your eyes, Dave.
It's for the one- people with good eyesight.
Brought the glasses.
So the Borough project basically is to renovate a 50-year-old elementary school, and it is and has been the town's and the school's top priority for a number of years. We started in FY13 going towards grant money from the MSBA. It took us 3 shots in the FY15 program. They finally accepted us in. So in April of 2016, we were brought into the eligibility period, which required us to do a significant amount of documentation of why they should accept us to go forward. We were able to make it through that, and in November of 2016, they accepted us into the schematic design phase. And the schematic design phase basically is to take a look at the building that you currently have, to look at the possibility of building something brand new, to look at sites that might be around town versus the site that you currently have, and to basically start to narrow down why and what you should do with the program. Going through that, there was also a whole series of programs relative to the educational process. Obviously, the whole building's requirement is to educate kids. So there was an education plan that had to be put together and also approved by the MSBA to say how this building would meet the educational needs of the school district as well as of that area of the town. In September 2017, the preliminary design program was accepted. That showed basically a number of different options, and it showed the fact that really in Foxboro we didn't have another location to move to. Most of the open sites that were large were either under conservation or state forest land, so we really didn't have a 25-acre site that we could just go and build a building. I think the landfill probably would have been the only one. I don't think that would have been a good idea. We made it through that, and basically in doing our whole schematic design, in January, we sent them our preferred design. And basically what that meant was we went through all the options and we said, why did we carve off different ones? So we had to prove to them that the option that we were coming forward with was the most practical. It met the education plan that we had submitted. It met the DESE's requirements for children with special needs and acceptance of handicap accessibility within the building and a number of other phases. In July of 2018, we actually submitted our schematic design, which basically is what you see behind me. It actually is about a 50-page document as far as plans, because it shows the site, it shows all that. It also is that book that's sitting over there on the counter with all the documentation of everything that we had to get approved, voted, and accepted through this process. And basically by us going through this and the MSBA accepting it, they have now accepted us to our next phase, which is obviously the funding of the project. I will say, although this has taken, I guess, just over 2 years at this point in time to get to where we are with the MSBA, they have a very thorough documented program. They have learned, I guess, hard lessons over the years where towns have gotten into trouble because they either went down a path, they took the MSBA with them, and they got all the way to the end, and then all of a sudden the town said, no, we're not interested. And that's a lot of resources from the state's point of view. It's also a lot of resources from the town's point of view because there's a lot of consultants that are involved through this process. As you know, once we got approval a couple years ago at the annual town meeting to hire an OPM and an architect, we were spending money. Now, granted, the MSBA was also, funding a share of that, but again, they're on the hook already at that level. So they want to make sure everything is done, it's documented, it's voted on, there is knowledge by the community of what's going on. We have our own website that basically shows the information that we've been going through, our minutes, our presentations we've made, and things of that nature. We just came out of the budget meeting with the MSBA, which is what they will submit to their board on August 28th for final approval to move forward into the construction phase. And that's what this document basically represents. And to kind of summarize it all down for you, at this point, the total project estimate, originally we were around $36 million. Based on obviously refining the program and pulling it down, we're at $34,671,000. So we've been able to reduce it a little bit, and it's also the fact that we're getting more detailed in our knowledge of what the building requirements are going to be. We went from about 49.3% reimbursement rate up to 56% reimbursement rate. That's partly because of the way we maintain our buildings. They gave us credit for that. It's partly because of the energy program we're saying we're going to use within the building as we move forward. And it's also there's a number of other little things that they'll give you minor points for as you go through. So we get up to the 56%. The one caveat with that with the MSBA is that they have a maximum per square foot cost. And in this case right now, and it changes, I won't say regularly, but it does change on a almost annual basis. Right now it's $333 a square foot. The $333 a square foot has nothing to do with construction cost. So I don't want anybody to say that they think that we can build a building for $333. It's basically the number of projects that they have in a given period that they've allowed forward divided by the amount of funding that they have. And so they can very quickly say,
back out the number.
We've got $10 million, we've got 100,000 square feet, therefore we got X amount of dollars. That's what we're going to give you towards it. So In our case, right now, the projection is about $440 a square foot to build this building. So if we were at $333 a square foot, we would get 56%, so they'd be paying the majority of the cost. But at this case, obviously, where it's going to be restricted, anything over that $333 becomes a town cost. The other thing that, and we got very high marks on this at the meeting we had a couple weeks ago with the MSBA, is we did everything within their guidelines. So we weren't looking to push outside more square footage, classroom sizes changing, things that, that they basically aren't going to fund you for. And by doing that, they were surprised within this renovation that we were able to actually keep everything within those limits. So we lost very little on that. There's going to be a slight reduction to this budget because I also have been working, negotiating the OPM contract to get that back into budget too. And I think I'm basically there now, so we'll be bringing that to the building committee. And so the OPM and the architect will all both be within budget for what the MSBA accepts, and that will help us there. So the only above dollar value will be the fact that we're above the $333. And so I think we've done as good a job as we can as far as controlling cost. As you can see, this is the MSBA's formula. So you can see that they're running numbers all across the board and comparing things and cutting, trying to limit their exposure on different costs. If we spend all of the contingency money that's built into this current budget, our total reimbursement would be $15,331,000. If we don't spend any of the contingency money that's built into this, we would end up getting reimbursed at $14,689,000. So that's why there's a difference between those two numbers. One is saying, well, how do we know you're going to need any contingency money? The other one's saying, well, we assume you will, but we're not sure where it's going to be. The way the MSBA works in their process, and we've done this a number of times, obviously the high school and the middle school were the last two examples, is that you fund everything up front. Okay, so we need to come to town meeting. We need town meeting to approve effectively the entire budget, the $34 million.
$34 million.
Now, in this particular case, we've already put up $700,000. So we're really looking for an article that would be $33 million. 33,971,567, and even that now, like I'm saying, is going to drop a little bit. So we funded 700 already as annual town meeting 2 years ago. This would be having to make up the difference because that 700 is built into this budget. Okay, it's an all-in. In going through the process again with Randy. Over the last year or so, actually Randy's been sitting on the committee, so he's kind of knowledgeable, which is a good thing in the process as far as how this whole thing has been laying out. We feel at least at this point, and I'm not going to speak for Randy, but we feel at least at this point this will fit within the annual town budget. It will be a tight year in a couple years based on the revenue stream. I don't see that as a bad thing, to be honest with you. I think taxpayers aren't looking for us to, spend money if we don't have it, type of thing. So I think from my perspective, it's a project that's long overdue. Of the schools that we have, there's been some chatter out there about concern about different buildings. But I guess the way I look at this is, first of all, the town's always done one project at a time. So Town Hall was our last project. It was the priority for the town. We weren't talking about other buildings that needed to be done in town. We were talking about what was the priority at that point. The priority at this point, from the school committee's point of view and hopefully from the town's point of view, is the borough school. That said, it's very important for the taxpayers to know we don't just abandon our other buildings. So I have put a lot of money from our school budget into the Taylor School, as an example. It's far better as a building structure than the Borough School is. As you know, a number of years ago, we put a new roof on that. That's got a new Sonnenfeld roof. Might now at this point be about 15 years old, but still those tend to lend 25 to 30 years. They're one of the best roofs you can have. We have replaced all of the lighting in all of our schools to LED lighting now. We're just completing that project, so the entire school complex, every light inside now is LED. We have replaced the IGO last summer under a special state program where we got high incentive rates, rebates back from the gas company. the boiler system there and put in a state-of-the-art Viessmann. We are just completing the same exact project at the Taylor. So the school committee continues to make sure that the other buildings stay in play. And while I'm sure the Taylor is the next project down the road at some point in time, if we were to take it today to the MSBA, we would be on a long waiting list because there's a lot of
It's not
schools
imminent.
in the
It's
state
not
that are much
imminently
worse
needed, yeah.
than that school is. And again, we're not trying to do what we're doing just to mask an issue. We're trying to make sure we keep it as a safe, comfortable building. As you know, it's the only building that's fully generated for power for any kind of outage. It's the only school we have that has that. So we've done a lot of things over the last 5 or 6 years that I've been working on those buildings, and I think that I think the town is in a pretty good shape. But the borough project itself is just it's a major project. We've got a lot of issues. We have a boiler system that I've said for the last couple of years. I knock on wood every day because that one goes. It's a waste of money because you're going to be redoing the whole building again, and you're going to be trying to put something like that in. We know the roof has problems. We continually maintain and patch the roof, but it still leaks. We can't stop that. So I think that the timing is right. I think the project is an excellent project. It's been well vetted, and it's nice on the school building committee, which is kind of dictated and designed by the state because they want to know. Bill sits on it, obviously Randy sits on it, Amy sits on it, as well as the full building committee. They want to know that all the stakeholders are listening and watching and questioning, quite honestly. And so I think we've gone through a good vetting process on that. So when we do come to the town now, I've done presentations at the Council on Aging. Amy's had one for anybody who was interested to come to one of her things. So we're trying to get the information out there, let anybody ask any questions they have, but we feel very comfortable that this project is the right project to do at this point.
Okay, any questions from the committee?
So are you basically gutting the school?
Yeah, so if you look at the way it's going to be a phased approach. The one thing we don't want to do, and there's been, again, a little bit of conversation about this, is try to move all the kids out of the borough school and then reconfigure the whole district to make that happen and make that work. As you all know, when we had the problems and we were getting ready to do the renovations between the Ahern and stuff, we did try that. We moved 8th grade up to the high school. We had, our elementaries were also, and quite honestly, there's a lot of chaos and a lot of angry people. So it makes no sense, if we can do this logically, to disrupt the entire district when you're trying to do one building. So we thoughtfully came up with what I think is a very good phasing program, and we've spent a lot of time kind of working this out. So the process is that we're going to build a brand new gym. The gym will be 6,000 square foot gym. The current one's 2,000 square feet. It doesn't meet the MSBA's requirements for the educational program that you're trying to put together. We're going to eliminate the auditorium because the MSBA, first of all, will not fund it on an elementary level. They barely fund it on a high school level, but they won't fund it on an elementary level. And so the taxpayers would have to pay the full cost of bringing that up to ADA requirements. The problem with the auditorium is that the slant of the floors are such a pitch that they don't meet anything. So what it means you have to do is rip out the entire inside, raise the floors up, raise the gym, the staging up, and go through the whole process. It would cost millions of dollars, and the taxpayers would have to pay 100% of it. We use it half a dozen times a year. Not a lot of sense. However,
It's like using
they
the dining
will
room on
fund
Thanksgiving.
us putting a stage on the end of an auditorium, on the end of a gym, either on the end of a cafeteria or on the end of a gym. That's what most of the elementary schools have done under the MSBA program. So we
It's the
took that.
cafetorium.
That's right. So we took that advantage and said, okay, we build the gym, we
it's a
put the
great
stage
idea.
on the end, and we can now still do the same things we could do actually better because they're bigger, and still handle that same thing. However, we're going to phase it by not putting the gym in day one, because we're going to keep the old gym up and running in the first phase. We're going to put 6 classrooms in there, temporary classrooms. Temporary classrooms are going to cost us about $300,000 in that section, and we're going to build the new pre-K at the same time, which is 3 classrooms. So that gives us 9 classrooms. We basically will just, once we finish those 2 areas, we will move half of the building out of their areas, which will be the kindergarten and first grade and second grade, and we will put those into these 9 classrooms. Once their area is fully renovated, we will move them back, and then move the third and fourth graders into those areas. Pre-K will now be in pre-K because its wing will be done, and then move them back out. So we've got it phased that it's about a 23-month cycle. And I think it'll be the least disruptive. It's the least costly to the community, I believe. If you rent trailers and go through the process of putting them on site, that will cost us almost $1 million. And the MSBA will not reimburse us for any of that. So we felt that this program would actually work. And again, we spent a lot of time on this, and we're at a very early phase to have gone through all this effort, but again, we want to make sure it can work. So that was the whole point. Even in our schematic design, we are actually, in so many ways, into construction level documents because we needed to make sure that we could renovate the whole building, that we didn't run into areas in the ceiling or, in the ground that were going to be problems for us. And so we had to do a lot more investigation, spend a lot more time and effort into that. But the good thing is, as we come out of this now, we're very comfortable. I mean, we've scoped pipes underneath the building. We've gone into the ceilings. I mean, we've really had engineers everywhere. So I think, it will be a total gut inside and out. The outside brick is actually in very good shape, but all the windows would be replaced. The facade at the two entranceways, the pre-K and the main entryway will be, readdressed, and the actual office areas are moved anyway, so that kind of gets done that way. And then, again, all new roofing, all new mechanicals, all new bathrooms, and then, new interior layouts as far as some classrooms.
So will you still have like the little bathrooms in between the classes? Or?
No, anything that's not in pre-K or kindergarten will be eliminated, and new larger gang bathrooms will be installed, which is the typical in most. The problem with all of the other bathrooms that currently exist is, first of all, they're not ADA compliant. They're tiny, and they're, quite honestly, they're dangerous. So, and there's not enough room to make them appropriately sized without taking room from the classrooms, which we don't want to do. The classroom is the reason we're there.
How does the timing of this special town meeting fit into your...
Yeah, so the reason we've asked actually, and asked this meeting to be as early into October as possible, is that if we're able to get this done, it will allow us to be in the ground in November of next year. We'll be able to get our construction documents fully done, get out to bid, get all of our file sub-bidders in line, get everybody ready to go, and actually, hopefully late October of 2019, early November, get the foundations in the ground, because we know once we get the foundations in the ground, we can work through the winter. That allows us to do all the new construction in those two areas all the way through the summer of the following year, which would put us in a point where they would be done and ready to be occupied. And then we can start the September of 2020 doing the actual renovations cycle. And there's 4 interior cycles that we would go through, or phases.
And expected completion date of the entire project is when?
2021. September of 2021. There obviously would be some punch list items after that, but it would be occupiable and we'd be up and running.
I'm sure there are other questions that people may have, but one obvious question is as compared to building a new project, what was the difference in price?
The cost of the new building, just the building, were very similar. What gets lost in that translation is, and we looked at this, the only place we could put the new building if we kept it on the same site would be in front of the existing building. The back area is too close to wetlands and made us, because it's down in a hole too, so it created some issues for that. So the only area was really where that front parking lot area is. And because of its size and its adjacencies to residentials, it basically gave us a 2-story, really funky looking building that for an elementary school is not the right approach. I mean, you prefer, even though we have an IGO that's a multi-story, you prefer on an elementary level a single story, if possible. So the cost for cost on building was about the same, but the huge difference on new construction would be, now you're into all new grade renovations of the entire site, okay? That the MSBA has a huge cap on. 8% of the total cost is all they will fund. And now you're talking about tearing down an existing building, repaving, redoing playgrounds, redoing grading around the entire site. It would have been multi-millions of dollars. So when we said that originally the price of construction versus renovation was about the same, we were strictly talking about the buildings.
Building to building.
We weren't talking about all the ancillaries that would have to go, that don't have to go in the renovation, because our fields stay where they are, our playgrounds stay where they are. Our parking stays where it is and is what it is. We did that a few years ago, so it's in pretty good shape. There's a lot of things we save by doing the renovation that we would not in new construction.
So, Bill, one of the things I'm seeing with school buildings all over the country is they're looking now at security in buildings.
Security is huge. So
Okay.
the building's designed with obviously safety glass around the whole building. It's partly a requirement, but we've also upped the scope in how we want to see that done. And again, obviously, I think any new project you're doing, if you don't do that, you're opening yourself up to a lot of liability. So between the camera systems, the burglar systems, and the glass and intrusion systems that are already built into this design, I think it will be kind of a model for where we would like to go in the future. We've done, and I want to speak to that from the school's point of view on all of our buildings. We've put in a lot of security measures over the last 3 or 4 years. Obviously, a lot that we don't broadcast because you don't want to tell everybody exactly what you've done and how they can, look at the sites. But, things with windows in buildings have been upgraded in every building that we have. Obviously, our camera systems, everybody knows we've done a significant upgrade on that throughout all of our buildings. Even Town Hall and everything has that as well now. And we're all in the same system, which is another thing that the police can see and monitor, so that's huge. We've put in all brand-new burglar and sensory alarm systems throughout all of our buildings. And we've put in all panic alarms that are mobile. So we've done a lot, not just for what we're planning to do for the borough, but for the whole district. And this will leverage on a lot of those systems. The new phone system actually has the 911 system that we never had before, where we can locate down to a room. If someone calls in, the fire department would know it's room 102 at the borough school that they have to go to, not they come in the front door and say what's going on. And sometimes nobody knows. So I think the security measures have been a key factor in this whole thing, probably just below the educational core program.
I have just a couple of questions. Are we going to be looking for any funding out of the capital stabilization account that we funded?
Yes. We'll be looking to draw the entire balance out.
What's that? Is that on top of?
No.
All right.
No, it's within, actually, if it's okay, I'm going to pass out the latest one of the long-range plan. Thank you.
Sorry.
So I put this 3 pages to give you the Reader's Digest to get it, take you where you want to go. If you flip to page, to page 15 first, just towards the back. It's the debt service schedule. So what this is showing you at the top is the breakdown of, obviously, the total cost, $34,671,000, and the various funding sources. So we're looking at included debt, as Bill said, to do it within the budget, $15.34 million. Capital stabilization, $2.1 million, which has been the plan all along, for this account, which is to defray a project of this scale. Under the free cash overlay surplus and town hall surplus, we have $1.9 million there that we're bringing into the project. $700,000, as Bill said, has already been brought in. It's already been appropriated. That was free cash. We have overlay surplus of $1 million that the Board of Assessors just released for the purpose of this project. I mean, it doesn't have to be for this project, but that was the stated intent. And the reason we added $1 million in overlay surplus is because of the timing of when we've captured new growth taxes. They came in a little bit higher, than anticipated, and so they stay an overlay until the Board of Assessors releases them. So there's $1 million there, and then $200,000 pieces. One is the building committee managed the town hall project to within the budget, so there's $100,000 there to reappropriate, which has sort of been the pattern with all the projects. the building projects, and then $100,000 from free cash. So in essence, $4 million of direct town cash funding, $700,000, which has already been appropriated, so $3.3 million towards this article on October 1st, plus the authorization to borrow. And as Bill said, the authorization has to be for the MSBA, has to be for the entire cost. But assuming everything comes in according to plan, it would lay out something like this: $15.34 million in included debt, meaning within the budget. As far as the timing of the debt, working with Bill and understanding the cash flows and when the cash needs would arise, the good news is that we wouldn't have to go to market to borrow this amount until January of fiscal 20. So January of 2020, there'd be enough cash funding in order to sustain the project, up until that point. And then by borrowing in January of 2020, the first debt service payments aren't due until fiscal 21. So it in essence helps us to push out when we have to fund the debt service. And as you can see right now, I'm estimating 3.5% interest in looking at we just recently reviewed the long-range consensus forecasts for all the various rates, and something just below 3.5 is currently the consensus forecast for this time when we would be going out to borrow for the 10-year Treasury, which is pretty much what our bonds have tracked to. So, so even in this environment, I know we're seeing moves in anticipation of other moves, but we're still, right now, the 10-year Treasury is still below 3%. So I still feel very confident, given the pretty comprehensive consensus forecast that was just published from all the different folks who pontificate on that 3.5 should be achievable, all things being equal. So, so we're starting off with a total debt service payment of about $1.3 million, and obviously dropping because it amortizes the principal evenly. So that's the first page. The next page I'll take you to is...
I think it's important just to note, Randy, on that, is that we're looking, this is a 20-year bond issue. I've been hearing comments being made that it's a 30-year bond issue. We don't bond for 30 years for anything other than maybe sewer or water.
Yeah, we've just for a major water project, 30 years. It's the only 30-year bond the town's ever done.
This is a 20. All the building projects are typically 20 years.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Next, I would direct you to page 1A, at the beginning. And right where the marker is there, the free cash line under the revenue headings, non-recurring free cash. So this is our long-range plan for the next 5 years, all expenditures within the general fund and all revenues anticipated. And we factored everything that we know into this today, including going to centralized dispatch, the solar savings, anything that you can think of that is going on in the community, whether it's the new hotel taxes or any of the new growth that's anticipated on Route 1. It's all in here. And so if you look at this line, this free cash funding line of the budgets each year, you'll see in fiscal 19, which we're in right now, we only needed to bring to bear $149,000 of free cash to balance the operating budget. Typically, we're running in a range of like $1 million, $1.5 million. As we march forward, next year, it's based on everything that we know today, we're only looking at about $500,000 for free cash funding. So in essence, what we've done in these 2 years is we've created some capacity based on the revenue streams, the recurring revenue streams that the town has, and the expense structure that the town is adhering to. We built some capacity to then be able to, in fiscal 21, absorb the initial $1.33 million estimated included debt. If you actually go into that column, fiscal 21, go up into the expenditures line, you see debt service included. You move over, you'll see it move from $591,000 in fiscal 20, and it bumps up to $1,880,000 in fiscal 21. So that's the borrowed debt service coming in, and so then what that's doing is that's resulting in an increased cash commitment required from free cash, which is the balancer. So currently estimated at just under $2.1 million, and the next year right around the same, and drops off the following year based on anticipated investment, new taxable value investment in the town, particularly on Route 1. So that's the use of free cash, which is sort of like looking at it from a P&L perspective. This is how much you're going to use, but what's it going to do to the balance sheet? So if you flip to page 7, I believe it is. Yeah, page 7. There's a free cash estimates, a forecast where we've been with free cash in the past, and based on everything we know, where it's panning out going forward. So what I look at when looking to absorb, the debt service on a project like this, I'm looking at the very bottom line. What is our free cash balance after A, it's been generated, and then B, it's been committed to the next year's budgets, operating and capital. So as you can see here, we're looking at still, even in the fifth year out, still, having a healthy cash balance, of just under $3 million, $2.8 million. So it's a good place to be. I would never want to see us drop below $1.5 million. So I feel like there's a good cushion here, good comfort level, for some bumps that come along. As a matter of fact, what I've also incorporated into this just the other day is something, Bill, we've talked about, which is this new payroll tax that apparently is going to be kicking in July 1 of 2019 across the state, having to do with funding time off benefits for those who don't have it. And even though if you're an employer who provides time off benefits like Foxboro to part-timers, you're still going to have to pay. And the tax is 0.63% to be split evenly between the employee and the employer. So if Medicare tax is 1.45, and so now we've got to come up with another 0.315, that adds another 22% to our Medicare tax. So that, to boil that down to real numbers, that's about $150,000 a year and growing. So I factored that in already. It was just completed in the budget, what do they call it?
Deliberations and
the budget.
the conference committee, conference committee
So
budget.
a couple of trade-offs at the state level. That's why our budget was so delayed, was for this particular arrangement to be agreed to, including an increase in minimum wage up to $15 over the next 3 years. So that, in essence, has stripped out already, reflected here, $650,000 of free cash that would have been here had that law not just been passed. Something, it might change, in speaking to Representative Barrows, it's possible they might go back and try
address
to...
that. Particularly those communities that provide leave benefits for people.
Exactly, and that's the point.
I think there should be an offset against that.
So, but I just wanted to give you a flavor for anything that we know that is material is reflected in here. So based on that, I feel confident that we can shoehorn the debt service for the Borough School, as we've been planning for several years, into the budget.
So you answered my second question. So to put this in perspective, it's going to be $4 million in cash. That's basically going to buy down debt, right? And the town's still going to have the financial flexibility in years going forward.
Correct.
Because this was all planned for.
Correct.
Right.
So it just goes to show that when you have a plan and you stick to it,
And you work the plan.
this is the result. So
I will say, after absorbing the town hall project within the included debt based on the incredible pricing and the cost management that was done, and then after anticipating absorbing this into the town's budget structure. I don't see us doing another major included debt project in town for some time. So I think we're truly leveraging the budget.
Without a major infusion of major new growth.
Yes, but we're
which
truly
could-
leveraging all of the budget capacity of the town as max as much as we
Right.
can, which I think is what the taxpayers would expect.
So do we have any debt coming off in the next 5 years?
We do, there's nothing material. If you flip to page 13, another eye chart, you can see the streams of, these are principal payments, and the ones at the top of the page are the general fund. So as you can see, the ones that are dropping off, we've got in 2 years, the landfill drops off, but that's 95,000, and that's excluded debt anyway, so that's a direct benefit to the taxpayer. Then you have to go out another 3 more years, or 2 more years to see anything else drop off, and that's 65,000 associated with the Ahern. So we're fairly locked in on the debt schedule, given that, this has been apparently the town cycle, not just for right now, but going back, 20, 30 years, this is the cycle that we've been on to address the buildings and all these major items. So not a lot falling off, but all of it is factored into, and I've highlighted in green, if you can see it, for the high school and the library and the town hall, the principal amount, that's when we would first be able to consider a refinancing on those relatively new issues. We've refinanced everything else that we possibly can. Although when I look at the town hall, we're at 2.21%. I don't see that.
That's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yes.
But it is important to note that if you look at the interest rates on a lot of these borrowings, we're in the 1% to 2% range for most of them. So clearly, the debt costs have been managed rather significantly during that time frame, because I'm sure there were costs much higher than that.
Yeah, there were definitely higher coupons. That's what we were right. We went through two refinancings, and I think we stripped away over $2 million of interest payments as a result of that.
And then the last question for Bill is, have you identified all the hazardous materials? Do you have a good sense of the scope?
Yeah, I mean, all of our schools are required to have a HERA reporting every year, which basically is a full evaluation of the buildings with whatever hazardous materials exist. Obviously, most of it would be asbestos-based. But the borough, like the other schools, all of the tile that was removed over the years basically was the asbestos base. That's gone. All of the issues around the bases of all the windows on the exterior was asbestos. That's been removed. So we have a couple pockets. We have a library that has a carpet over some asbestos tile and one small office area. There will be a little bit of asbestos on pipe issues, but all of that is in large documents that we maintain every single year, and we have to supply to the state. And on top of that, we had the asbestos consultants and the hazardous materials consultants not only have that book, but come through and do another look, just to make sure. So yes.
Good.
Other questions, comments from the committee?
Well, I see you brought that floor plan. Do you mind just quickly showing what's being added on to this?
Sure. So, basically, the additions are on this side of the building. So this pre-K and mechanical rooms, custodial storage and all that this is brand new, and then this is brand new. So everything from here to here is the existing building. And, again, pre-K has become a different, pre-K is an intervention program, okay? It's not like, I want to bring my child someplace so I can go to work type of thing. It's basically designed around the fact that we test children from age 2.5 to just under 5. And basically, if we find a need, we are supposed to try to mitigate that need before they get to kindergarten. All right? So that's what the pre-K program is about. Now, part of that is that you're supposed to have peer kids also in those classrooms. So that's why we do have some families that tuition in to the program to be, have that service. But, so these rooms really are, when we had them over here in this area, they're not adequately sized for the therapeutic issues that we need to deal with all of these kids, the training, from bathroom points of view and all that. They're not designed right for a pre-K program. They were designed to be basically first, second, third, fourth grade classrooms. So these are really redesigned based strictly on what a pre-K program is supposed to be and how it's supposed to run and to move forward. As I said, the gym originally was a block right in this area right here. And now this would be the new gym with a stage off the end. It will have a separate entrance and exit so that it can be used by the community in off times, and we can lock the rest of the building down. Its own bathrooms as well. So basically, if the youth program or some other program wants to use this gym, it will be a usable gym that way. And we'll have access here and from the backside to the parking on both sides that way. So, we try to, obviously, any building we do, like we did with this building, like we do with, the joint public safety, we try to say, is there also a community component to it, and how would that be used? And this one would definitely have that component. The existing auditorium will become the media center and also our computer lab area. So, and then basically the classrooms remain in the outer side. The only difference is we end up with some what we call group spaces, the same concept we did at the Ahern a number of years ago, which has worked out phenomenally well. It's been kind of our model for how do you break down a classroom into two components if you want. If you have the space outside, you can share it between classrooms and work with it. It's worked out really well. Most schools are being developed that way now. We happen to have done that almost 20 years ago when we did the Ahern. So, we see that concept as the right concept to employ here as well. The cafeteria main area will remain the same with some exterior wall differences. The biggest problem we run into is the cafeteria structurally is not large enough to meet the requirements of the modern kitchen, because under all the code requirements, we have to have bathroom facilities within there for the employees to use. They're not supposed to have to go out of there into another bathroom, come back in for contamination reasons. You're supposed to have separate storage for them, almost like a locker room area for them. And then you have, obviously, additional storage for cold and hot goods. So this area actually will expand and take up part of what's existing boiler room. And that's why the boiler room ends up over here. So, like I said, the majority of the building is original, and it's these two components that are the new. And that's what will be built first.
Creating the swing space.
Right.
Other comments or questions from the committee? I'll accept the motion at this time. So, Randy, do you have a crafted motion for this one?
Yeah, got it. This was the motion we talked. Right. So they can craft something off of that?
I move that the CIP committee approve the expenditure of $33,971,567 for the purpose of paying costs of the renovation in addition to the Mabel and Laurel Elementary School located at 16 Moore Street, Foxboro, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto. Project, which school facility shall have anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children for at least 50 years, and for which the town may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, said amount to be expended under the direction of the School Building Committee. To meet this appropriation, the town treasurers should be authorized to borrow said amount under MGL Chapter 44 or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any project cost the town incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received by the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. Provided further that any grant the Foxboro may receive from the MSBA for the project shall not exceed the lesser of 1, 56.01% of eligible approved project costs is determined by the MSBA, or 2, the total maximum grant amount determined by the MSBA, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the project funding agreement that may be executed between the town and the MSBA, and any other funds that the town brings to bear for this project.
All right, do I have a motion to, so who'd like to move that?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I'm just wondering, what year was that built, that school?
50 years
celebrating the
exactly,
50th
so-
birthday.
yeah, So,
Yeah.
58, right? 68, 1968.
Thanks.
Okay. Any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you very much.